That's packing them in. Well, yes, you could say that. But it's actually more comfortable and more interesting than the standard suburban system of larger lots. So if you look at what we did, so here's, and again, it's the same kind of stuff David was talking about. Gridded streets, you got every which way to go. There's no cul-de-sacs in here. Everything's totally walkable. One thing to notice here is, though, we've got all this land out here, right? Remember we saw that those maps we had of the prairies and the forests and everything. We've got farmland and rangeland out here that kids could actually walk to. So that little town in Idaho that I grew up in, not only could I walk downtown, I could walk out to bona fide farmland. 9, 10 years old, I could walk out to the farmland, out to, on the sagebrush that we had back in those days. So this is what that looks like. This is the picture of that. Does this look like some hyper-urban kind of a place, or does it look like small-town America? It looks like small-town America, and it is. It's denser than most places you would see today. It certainly has some multifamily kinds of things. It's got some downtowns, and it's got, again, not the large lot, but fairly narrow lot, but still single-family detached homes, right? So we're not giving up on our American dream of the single-family detached homes. These little differences in sizes make such a big difference in the quality of life, in the real walkability, and from my point of view as the steward of the watershed, it saves all this stuff out here that was going to be chewed up by standard development, even with these wonderful little features of swells and et cetera, that was going to supposedly help the water quality issues here. We put all that in. We were able to design in little what we call rainways, et cetera, run all of our water through wetlands, et cetera. So we were able to do all the green stuff, zero discharge, if you want, of rainwater. But it was walkable, and it's an interesting place that you would want to be living in. So again, that's where we're back to I think this is my last slide. My final mantra here is, yes, we've got to save this. That's half of what we've got to do. The other half is what do we do about these guys here? And so again, it's let's build stuff that honors what we take. If we have to take from the prairie, then let's build something that is worthy of that prairie. All right, I think that's, I got to give, okay. Bob had asked me to talk about this just real quick. We have a little model called the CHARM model, Community Health and Resource Management, that I guess we could use at a future scenario. We use it for scenario planning. So I'm with Extension, Texas A&M. We run around, we are from the government, yes, and we are here to help you, actually. But we're here to help you make your own decisions. We're not here to make your decisions. What we're here to do is to help you see the consequences of your decisions. So this model we have enables people, uses this kind of fancy light pen, light table, enables people, we call it the WE table, to get around it, to paint development. This is from an exercise we did down in Galveston where people can actually paint. We said, you got 400,000 people here, where are you going to put them? We had 6 tables of people playing with different scenarios, painting different kinds of development. So from one house per 5 acres to 5 houses per acre to 50 houses per acre. People could choose, and then they could see what the consequences were. That's the whole thing here, is to see what the consequences of your choices are. So anything that's spatial, we can plan it into this thing, whether it's jobs to households. Storm inundation was a big thing down there. How much farmland are you chewing up? How much nitrogen are you adding to stuff? And this is one of my favorite slides about this. This little girl, she figured it out in a second, right? How to use the light pen. So even Aggies can use this kind of stuff, right? Not a problem here, okay? So all kinds of stuff that we can put in there. We could go on and on. Farms are fading fast, and I am fading out very quickly because I've already gone over my time.
So this has to be a worry here in Waller County too. This was in the paper, 2 months ago. And they're sort of happy about it in Montgomery County. I'm not sure why, but there you are. So that's a big issue. So this is for you county commissioners and the county judge here. These are different types of development. residential in the city and so forth, commercial, a mall. This is in Asheville, North Carolina. 1 to 2 story office buildings, 4-story apartments, 4-story mixed-use condos, and 4-story and some other 4-story mixed-use condos. And these amounts are the return to the county per acre of that kind of development. So whenever you say, let's build some sprawl, you can think that's the kind of number we're going to get back per acre. But if you build 4-story mixed-use condos, you're going to be talking about $250,000. Massive differences. And by the way, malls, like big box stores are right in here somewhere. So they're not helpful. And most of this kind of stuff, the services that you have to provide cost more than you get back. So as some people call what's going on in Harris County a Ponzi scheme, that sooner or later they're going to have to figure out how to pay for all this stuff, all these muds that are all collapsing at the same time, the roads that need to be rebuilt, and the county saying, what do we do now? Can Houston, I thought you were going to annex all this stuff and then you would pay for everything. And Judge Emmett says that, every week he's talking about that because they don't know what to do, because it doesn't return enough money to provide the services that the county already provides. This is another place, the same picture. This is, Sarasota County, Florida, and there's lots of these. You can look this up. This guy, do I not have it? One of these pages, Joseph Minicozzi, Minicozzi. You want to see some really interesting presentations, you go see him. But this is around the country. So this is some averages of 22 cities, the same picture. Single-family residential returns $1 per acre. Mixed-use 6-story, of course, that's up maybe off the charts. But, these kind of things, a 2-story mixed-use building does 76 times more per acre than a single-family home does. Picture of a house, $3,700 per acre per year. A little center like that, $92,500. And this is water use as you get denser. More dwelling units per acre. So water use falls. That's got to be an issue here pretty soon, if it's not already. The cost of development, what we call traditional development, is about 38% less than the cost of infrastructure, of the sprawl infrastructure. Cost of public services for commercial and industrial working in open land are low, and residential is high. Buyers prefer what we call complete neighborhoods, so I won't go through all this, but they were asked to describe two kind of communities, and one was walkable and one was not, and 55%. This is the National Association of Realtors here. Total external capital public facility costs, how about that for words? A unit cost in the downtown area is $9,000 compact kind of urban form, whereas scattered urban form is around $23,000 per acre. So you get the picture here. It costs a county a lot more, or a city a lot more, to develop single-family dwellings than any other thing there is. And the best thing you can do is mixed-use stuff like that. So we see in the big city, like in America, the most valuable land in America is on Fifth Avenue at the east side of Central Park for pretty obvious reasons. But what you're seeing there, value comes from often transit being available. Always a park, nearby park, will drive property values up, and walkability. So there's a thing called Walk Score. You might want to look it up and see walkscore.com, where you can put your own zip code in or your own house, and it'll tell you what your walk score is. Well, in Washington, D.C., and New York, and some other big cities now, realtor signs on the outside tell you what the walk score is for that place, because the higher the walk score, the more they can sell the place for. So this idea of complete streets creates less public debt and generates more revenue per acre of land. These kind of neighborhoods attract talent. If you want talented people to be living in your neighborhoods and in your towns and cities, this is the kind of thing you have to give them. So complete towns and neighborhoods look like this. We went from having these all over America to basically to spreading them out. So we put the houses here, and then we put the mall here, and then there was a civic center somewhere, often surrounded by land and parking lots and so forth. And they need to be put back together to make towns, what we have always called them over centuries of time. Stuff like this, where this looks complicated, but you think, well, wait a minute, this has everything. This is only 2 blocks from here to here. This is about 4 blocks, and there's some 5-story stuff and 3-story stuff, and over here is some single-family dwellings and some townhouses in the middle. And as you get away from the main street, it becomes less dense. So if you like this world, it's there. If you like this world, it's there. And generally, people who are senior citizens or young people can more likely afford to live in these places. So as I told the Bel Air City Council, they were proud that they were a city of homes and that they only had single-family dwellings and they weren't letting any apartments in. And I said, well, so you're saying that you don't want your children to get out of college and come live in Bel Air, right? And well, look, actually nobody was thinking that. Well, how many of your kids are going to get out of college and can buy a $750,000 house? Because that's all you've got, or more. So if you're thinking about your kids, and you want them to even live in your town, you got to figure out a way for them to do that. I won't talk about that. But this is a kind of planning level that you can do in Brookshire and in Hempstead and other places. It's very urban, as those places already are. And it's the idea, the idea is, as you come away from the farmland, it becomes more and more dense in the center. And so if you don't like density, you live over here or here or here. But in the center is where the action is, and that's where the economy is. I won't talk about this idea of garden cities except to say this guy's plan was that you would take a big 6,000 acre plot and you would only develop 1,000 acres of it and 30,000 people would live in there. Now that really isn't terribly dense, but it makes it possible for everybody to be able to walk to the countryside. So this was kind of what it looked like from the center, and there's a lot of green space in it. And by the way, you could put 62 of these in the city of Houston, and still have 87% of the land be open space. So a little late for that, perhaps, but this concept. So this is the first one he built. It wasn't a round thing with all those funny things. This is Wellwyn Garden City. As you can see, it's surrounded by rural land. It's all walkable, and it's got jobs there. So these people don't drive to London for their work. This is a model that, as actually people are starting to do more and more of this, and as you use Google Earth to fly around Europe, you'll see thousands of these communities, and actually there's more of them. There's a little one here, and so forth. Americans are now saying that most of us would rather live in a different place than we actually live in. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means most people would prefer to live in a small town than in other kinds of things. And suburbs are pretty popular. Cities are too, but there are more people living in cities than want to, and there are way fewer people living in small towns than want to. Now, is this all dreaming? How do you do small towns? You may know about this, the Kinder survey in Houston. We're seeing this interesting trend now where the blue or purple here is people who would like to live in a single-family home with a big yard where they need to drive, and the green, or did I get that backwards? Yeah, and the green is a smaller home that's urban walking areas, and over whatever that is, 6 years, it's now the majority of the people in the Harris County, at least. And we see the same kind of thing asked a little different way, where so 50-50. So half the people want to live in a circumstance that is just not available. We just don't see that urban stuff. And we don't see the small town stuff working quite right. So the opportunity for Waller is huge to have. You'll see in a minute, Chuck will show you, I can't remember the number, but it's like the vast majority of you folks in Waller like the open space. That's why you're here. But I can tell you that the vast majority of the people that are coming want to live in this kind of environment in your towns. So you can accommodate them without losing your open space if you'll just focus them on your towns. Don't show them the open space. So Chuck, how about our region?
Thank you, David. I referenced the Our Great Region work earlier tonight. This is actually a lot of exciting work. David was involved with it. John was on one of our technical advisory committees. Folks from Waller County and the surrounding areas were also involved. It's very exciting because in a lot of the work that we do at the Houston-Galveston Area Council, while we do a lot of work on transportation, workforce development, services for our aging populations, environmental work, economic development, a lot of things that we're involved in, a lot of those are oftentimes hemmed in, those discussions are hemmed in by our funding sources. And so it's kind of like if you had to go to the grocery store with 5 different checkbooks, and you had a little bit of money in a checkbook for the eggs and milk, and you had another checkbook for the vegetables, and some more for potato chips. We actually got to talk about all those things at the same time with this. We were required to look at the interaction between housing and economic development and healthy communities and the environment and transportation, how all those things are all interconnected. So it was a lot of fun and a lot of good work, and there were a lot of challenges associated with it too. One thing we did as part of that work is we did a survey, and I reached out across the region. We had about just shy of 7,000 people or so participate in the survey. And here's some of the questions and some of the responses. I'm going to spare you and not read every one of them to you, but we'll pick out a few that are kind of interesting to look at. One of the things we looked at was less time on the road. If we looked at development in the region as finding better ways to get people to and from work and around their communities. And so this question is, from where you live, how difficult or easy is it for you to get to the places you want to go? And so the response you see here, you see the region as a whole, the 13 counties, and then we split out Waller County responses as comparisons. And so while the percentages are still low for very difficult, it is about twice what we see in the region, and also larger difficulty there as well. So we ask people kind of how easy is it to get around? What makes travel difficult or very difficult in your region? And the questions range from I have to drive long distances to congestion, how reliable their transportation might be, and if the transit options are available as well. And you can see in this case, the responses for Waller County tracked very closely to the responses for the rest of the region. A lot of folks, what makes travel difficult? Long distances is in there for about 45%, 40 to 45%. But the congestion is what really gets people frustrated. And so that's something to think about as the county develops in the cities and the unincorporated areas, is there may be a point if folks are having to drive in those congested conditions all the time to get back and forth to work, that might affect how much people want to live out in this area as well. From where you live, how much time does it usually take for you to reach the following destinations? And so it's interesting, less than 10 minutes, kind of high in Waller County, 29% say that they can get to work in less than 10 minutes. Anything you want to put on that one in particular, David?
Assuming that's farmers?
Well, we didn't ask for that specific information on that. It's also 45 to 60 minutes is in there at about 22%. From where you live, which of the following could you reach in 10 minutes or less comfortably by bicycling or walking? And this is interesting because, as we might expect, out in the rural areas, there are not a lot of bus or light rail stops. So that one came in at a 0. To get to a park or natural area was kind of interesting. That scored a bit low as well. But a lot of folks felt that they could get to school under those conditions. Pausing for the train. If you could live anywhere in the region, which of the following would be the most important factor in your decision? Now, it's interesting. I mentioned about 7,000 people participated in the survey. That's a lot of people. A lot of times these surveys don't get anywhere near those amounts. Disclosure for Waller County, I checked before I came out, and we had about 33 responses in Waller County. So it's about roughly the same size group that's here tonight responded from Waller County for the survey. Interesting here, if you could live anywhere, which of the following be the most important factor in your decision? David mentioned open space. For the region, that about 10% of the respondents ranked that as the most important factor. In Waller County, about 44%, so almost half are in there. Close to activities, walking and bicycling distance, about 20% in the region, about 3% in Waller County. So just some useful information as you think about how the folks who are all here now, kind of how they feel about what's important with where they live. And then I believe this one pretty much tracked pretty closely with the regional tallies as well. As our region continues to grow, which of the following would you like to see in the area where you live? And interesting on this, almost everyone wants to see the region, they want to see more jobs near where they live. Waller County, the same there. As far as housing, a lot of folks say, yeah, we want growth, we want economic opportunity in our communities, but we don't really want a lot of folks moving in or living by us. And so, Waller County had 6%, that's not that much different than 11, they're both relatively low, and that's one of the big challenges, right? How do we embrace the opportunity that's coming our way with the population growth and the economic development and still maintain the sense of place that we have now? How do we develop in a way that's going to be a quality way for current residents and future residents as well? And so that's really probably the one big thing that is out there that we all need to think about is how are we going to get more jobs, better jobs? How are we going to welcome more opportunity and yet not have a lot of people living nearby? By the year 2040, our region will need to build new housing, shops, and workplaces for more than 3.5 million additional residents. What's the best way to accommodate that growth? Build new suburbs. Waller County, the respondents for Waller County were a little above the regional average on there, about 12.5%. A lot of folks talked about redeveloping existing communities, taking what we currently have, especially with infrastructure, and finding ways to redevelop that, and then a balance of new suburbs and redevelopment ranked pretty favorably as well too. And that's something to think about because Waller County as a whole, you're in a great position. You have growth and economic development and opportunity coming your way. You have some time to make the choices that you want to make as to how you're going to take advantage of that and embrace that. The choices might be a mix in certain areas and not just one particular approach. Greener region, this one focused more on the environment. As we grow, steps should be taken to preserve our region's wetlands, forests, prairies, and shorelines. This was, for all the respondents, the agreement that we should be looking at preserving our region's natural assets ranked very high. 95% agreed that was important versus about 5% disagreeing, and that also tracked well over into Waller County. Not a big surprise there. Rate your level of agreement with the following statements about strategies for preserving the region's wetlands. So it's like everyone agrees that we should be taking care of those things, but how are we going to do it? And so there was a question on whether or not folks would support the use of public funds to buy and preserve those areas for public use, even if it meant higher taxes or fees. And other respondents, about 23%, strongly agreed. For Waller County, about 19.4%. Whether they strongly agreed or agreed, made up about half, a little over half for the region and for the county, about 20% neutral, and then smaller percentage disagreeing. So folks still seem to place a high value on it with those options. Competitive workforce, I think I still have a few slides left on this. This one focused on having a competitive workforce, training our workers to have better paying jobs, getting more jobs into our region. I think the opportunities for getting a good education in my community are excellent. That tracked very close with the region as well too, about 25 to 29%. Good for getting a good education in the community, about 39% in Waller County. Fair, and then about 13% poor. It is interesting, these numbers track somewhat closely, but most folks in the region were less than 10%, thinking that they could not get a good education, and it's a little above 10% for Waller County there. This one talks about the opportunities to learn new job skills. This one's kind of interesting. For the region, folks felt that they had some chance, at least, an excellent chance. In Waller County, not so much. 0% on the response there. And then a fair opportunity to learn new job skills is kind of where the biggest ranking came out on that. How would you rate your opportunities available where you live to get training and support to make your business successful? So not just as a worker, but if you have a business. Kind of the results on there. Not as excellent as the rest of the region based on the respondents, but again, fair coming in. So, decent chance of getting the support and training to make a business successful. And now it's Fayetteville, and this is probably David.